I'm Dr. Patrick Andersen of Madison Maximize Living. Maximize quality nutrition is one of the 5 essentials to a healthy life. You can't escape it. Food matters. I have a question for you. How would you rate your nutrition on a scale from 0 to 10? 0 being no problems, like an organic veggie eater, or a 10 being the worst, nothing but junk food? What's your number? If you're a 5 or higher, I think we've got some serious work to do. Don't feel bad. Real food is fun and it's easier than you think. And those junk food cravings, when you eat real, they become a thing of the past. Getting real with food, coming up next.
And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. Today we are getting real with food, meaning we need to start eating real food with real ingredients. So chiropractors, so why is nutrition so important to you?
Well, because there are really 5 things that interfere with optimal health. And one of those is our stress and our thoughts. The second is our nerve system and our spine interfering with it. The third is the quality of our food. The fourth is lack of moving our bodies. That interferes with our health. And the fifth is toxins. So really, to build a healthy body, we're missing some things if we aren't talking nutrition to our patients.
And the first thing I think of is how busy people are. I think of all the people I know, and we try to do the best we can. We take some shortcuts because sometimes you just gotta. But what are some that are really maybe doing more harm than good? Some of the shortcuts we should cut out.
Well, there's a real simple one. You're gonna laugh at this one. Not chewing your food.
Really?
Well, if you want better nutrition, chew your food so you can digest it better. It's as simple as that. Not taking time to drink water. Poor food combination. Sometimes we eat all kinds of different proteins all together, add sugar to it, it just doesn't digest well. We're eating too many convenience foods. Deli meats, article came out that said, by the World Health Organization, said deli meats are not fit for human consumption. That was a pretty strong statement.
Yikes.
Yeah, so you really have to watch the additives in these deli meats so that you're healthier. But canned food, frozen food, those kind of shortcuts, microwaving, there's problems with that. I think it denatures the foods. I think it changes the character of the food, and it's not as healthy. We eat to fill ourselves instead of fuel ourselves. I think that's a big difference too. We got to make sure we get that quality food in, because most of the food we eat, too much of it is just poor quality, just trying to fill up and feel better, stop that hunger, but yet we're unhealthy when we eat that way and tired later.
Yes. And two, I think if you wait too long to eat and then you get so hungry, then you are making those poor choices, and then you're just filling yourself and not fueling yourself, and then maybe you feel more tired and worse after that. So what do you think is really holding people back from just making some of these changes? I would imagine time is probably one of them.
Well, I think it's bad BS, a bad belief system.
Yeah, you're right there.
Well, we think it's too hard, or it's too expensive, or I don't know what to do. The food won't taste good. It takes too long to prepare. Those are just bad belief systems. And we can change that by realizing, you can get off of your food addictions. You will survive without your soda. In fact, every person we've gotten off soda, I like to ask them, do you miss it? And they say, no. And the same thing is true with other foods over time. They just don't miss it.
Yep, I definitely think that's true. I've noticed, like, if I, for some reason, eat a lot of sugar one day, then I will crave it for a few days afterwards.
Exactly.
But if you hold off, it goes away. But it's true.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you get sugar, you start craving it again. So if you're going to have some sugar, wait till later. But try to keep it down. That's why my favorite food is actually dark chocolate. I think I have dark chocolate every day, 70% or higher. But stay away from the other sugar. So there's not much sugar in that, and you can actually get it sweetened with stevia and things like that.
So you can eat some dessert, have some dark chocolate. So what's a big thing that people could do today, just to kind of get going on a change?
Well, I think learn a few good foods and add one good food a week. and take one bad food a week out. So foods like avocados or blueberries or walnuts would be fine choices to just add. They aren't necessarily that expensive. You can buy them in larger quantities, and it's really not that much more expensive. It's a lot simpler than people think to eat real. It can be very complex if you try to get into every little thing, but the way nature provides the food, it's already complete. There's so much in our food that we haven't even discovered yet in an apple, in an orange,
really?
in vegetables. Yeah, there isn't just certain vitamins and minerals. There's all kinds of intrinsic factors, and it's put in a natural balance so they're synergistic to each other. When we try to concoct a vitamin and nutrient without whole food based, it doesn't have the same biological activity in our bodies.
So really, nature has already made all this for us, and it's perfect, exactly what we need. We don't need to do all that work.
Especially if it's organic and proper farming procedures are used without pushing the soils too much. So we want to get people to eat real food, eat local, get naturally raised protein, the beef or chicken or fish, free-range chicken, wild-caught fish. Those are some of the easier changes you can just do. Just saying, I won't have any food with sodium nitrite or sodium nitrate in it anymore. Just be done with it.
Just make that
and then
small
you
change.
can also say, I'm just going to have grass-fed beef when I have beef. And you're going to make some healthy choices one at a time.
Well, there's a lot of food for thought here, Dr. Pat.
Yeah,
pun
that's
intended. We'll have more on that right after this. Have your questions for Dr. Pat answered on an episode of Maximize Living. Email Dr. Pat at cw57.tv. And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about getting real with food. We were talking during the break. What are some of the other things that you can do to get rid of some of those temptations in the house?
Well, probably the biggest step that I just love to see a patient make, or anyone for that matter, is to clean out the pantry. Open your refrigerator, open your pantry, and get rid of the stuff that isn't healthy. And you might not have a lot left. But the fact of the matter is, everyone gets hungry at times, and if we have junk in the pantry, it's going to get eaten. You cannot resist it. Resistance is futile.
There it is, our Star Trek joke. For those of you keeping score at home, that's the second in the series. So let's talk about the Maximize Living Core Plan that you've got.
Yeah, we've got a core plan and an advanced plan in Maximize Living and available in our nutrition books at the office. And these are awesome. They're really higher in fat, because we've tried the low-fat diet, and we created obesity by people overloading on carbs, and the fats people eat were poor quality. We've driven the obesity epidemic.
Counterintuitive.
So people aren't fat because they eat fat, they're fat because they don't burn fat. So we want to get healthy fats, not damaged fats in our body, get our exercise going, and teach our body to be a fat-burning machine, not a carb-storing machine.
Yes, definitely not a carb story.
And so the diet is moderately high in fat, it's high in fiber on the core plan, lower in sugar and moderate protein, and lower in grains. Then when we get a more serious nutritional plan, we go into what we call the advanced plan. And that's where we really cut out sugar as much as possible, almost no sugar. We even cut out grains largely, just a small portion of grains, because they tend to be inflammatory. So it's an anti-inflammatory diet, and it's pH balanced, and it's low glycemic. So the fruit gets changed in the advanced plan, where we can eat pretty much all the berries you want, and Granny Smith apples, and grapefruit in moderation, but a lot of the other sweet fruits that break down and have a high glycemic or sugar index, we try to limit those.
So you also have a different food pyramid for Maximize Living, and it sounds like it's got some differences, like the grains aren't on the big part of the triangle anymore.
Right, it's clean foods for one. We really talk about getting a cleaner, higher quality food, lower grains, lower carbs, higher in fat, and better oils. So we really look at the whole gamut of nutrition to maximize the quality of the nutrition.
So let's talk about water. We mention water a lot on a lot of our episodes and how important it is for you.
Yeah, 75% of people are actually dehydrated. and it can cause a lot of issues. In fact, I had a patient, he had a neck issue, he had bad headaches every day. And I was having trouble helping him, which was kind of surprising because usually we're pretty good at helping headaches. And in his particular case, he hated water. He hardly drank any. And as soon as he started drinking water, his headaches got better. So if you want to have trouble with your body and your brain not working well, get dehydrated. So the problem with water is people think they can guzzle a quart of water and they'll be okay and they're fine, but you only can absorb 2 to 4 ounces about every half hour. So that's why it's a good idea to have a water bottle around and drink a good clean water frequently.
Okay, so those of you that are trying to guzzle it all, well, I got my 8 glasses in.
Yeah, you can't do it all at once.
No, that's not going to work. So I saw vegetables there on your pyramid too.
Yeah.
So obviously they're important.
I just can't say how important vegetables are. If I hear someone say, I'm just not a veggie eater, I cringe. Because there's just no way you can be healthy without those vegetables. They have your vitamins, your minerals, your fiber, your antioxidants. They cause you to be regular. They're just critical. There's intrinsic factors in there. We don't even know what's all in them when you eat natural. And so without vegetables, we just don't function well. And of course, veggies should be about half to 2/3 of your plate, and then shrink down the grains and a moderate amount of protein.
And you want to eat clean. There's such a thing as a clean 15 and a dirty dozen.
Yes, the Environmental Working Group is a great group. Look it up online. They always have good information. Every year they publish the Clean 15 or the Dirty Dozen. And the easiest way to remember, the Clean 15 are the ones that you can get non-organic. But the Dirty Dozen, remember those. It's strawberries, apples, nectarines, peaches, celery, grapes, cherries, spinach, tomatoes, bell peppers, cherry tomatoes, and cucumbers. Those need to be organic.
Definitely worth splurging on the organic on those. Well, stay with us. We have so many more tips to share with you right after this. Have your questions for Dr. Pat answered on an episode of Maximize Living. Email Dr. Pat at cw57.tv. And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. Right now we've been discussing Maximize Living's food pyramid and how you can eat cleanly and healthy with real foods. So taking a look at that pyramid, I noticed that natural raised animal products are coming up next.
Yes. When we have food that is not grass-fed, beef that's not grass food, it's higher in omega-6s. It tends to be more inflammatory to your body. So we want cleaner meats. And the reasons it's so important because toxins are bioaccumulative. So your plant can get toxins from pesticides and things, but then the animal that eats that plant is accumulating all those toxins. And so you take so many pounds of plant food to make a pound of beef, you can end up getting a lot of toxins. It's higher density. So if you're going to spend money on food, spend it first on your protein, on your meat, your fish, your chicken. So we want grass-fed beef or free-range chicken and wild-caught fish. They're much healthier.
Yeah, we have to be careful at the top of the food chain because it just keeps getting worse, it sounds, as you climb.
Yeah, and it tastes better too when you eat when you cook and eat that way. It just tastes better.
And it's like your body just knows that that's what you're supposed to be
Exactly.
doing. So now oils and fats, I noticed that those are actually showing as moderate to high on the maximized food pyramid.
Right, yeah. Like we said, the butter is good to eat. We've mentioned that on the show before, and it's better for you than the margarine. And we thought we were doing ourselves a favor. We're actually doing ourselves harm when we're eating the margarines. The fat food diet has fat food craze has failed. So we want to eat moderately good fat. It has more calories to it, and it burns better in your body, gives you more energy. And there really isn't a problem in studies that people who have higher fat foods are not related to higher cholesterol. It's the oxidation of cholesterol that's a problem. So if you have bad diet, stress, you can oxidize your cholesterol. So when you eat well, it's not a big issue. There's the paradox in France and in Spain where they eat a lot of fat, cheese and stuff, and they don't have higher cholesterol levels.
So that's great news. I mean, doesn't
Yeah.
it sound like so much more fun to eat those things, those real good foods, like those French cheeses?
Yes.
So what are some of the good oils? Because it is so confusing. There's so many out there, and you hear so much conflicting information.
Well, I think, Stacy, the best way to understand it is just remember the good stuff and don't do the other ones, because there's so many that are bad. But the butter, the olive oil, the coconut oil, avocado oil, and grape seed oil is good.
So why?
Those would be more balanced for you, and they aren't inflammatory.
And those are nice tasting too, but now all these other oils out there, so many bad ones. And I just wonder how they end up being bad, because a lot of them have, it seems, naturally derived sources.
Yeah. Well, corn oil is really bad, any vegetable oil. Although once I didn't want to use vegetable oil, so I wasn't a very good cook. This was a few years ago. I'm not that good now either, but I try. But I used olive oil in a cake. It didn't come out very well.
You know, I've done it. It's okay. But
It was a little funny tasting. But you think they're natural, but they tend to be high in omega-6s. And so they're inflammatory to your body. So the sesame oil, the safflower oil, the canola oils, those just aren't good oils. So stick with the ones we mentioned.
so if you were going to make a cake then and not use olive oil, which one would you use?
Well, you know, I use half butter. And just,
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I use a little more butter in it. Yeah. And I use, I haven't tried avocado. I haven't had that many cakes.
Yes, because we do have to watch that sugar a little bit too. So we've talked about now the oils, the natural raised beef. There's fruits, I think, coming up next, and they're a little bit higher up, I would imagine, because of the sugar that's in them on the pyramid.
You don't need as many. I always say eat twice as many vegetables as you do fruits, and that's a pretty good idea for people. A simple little phrase like that. We're concerned with the fruits with what we call the glycemic index. We want to keep sugar down because sugar just isn't healthy for the body. So even fruit can be high in sugar. So some of these kids are drinking these fruit juices that are just way too high in sugars.
And you're not
And they
getting
even
any
add
of
sugar
the
to 'em.
fiber, you know, by eating the fruit itself.
Right. So we want foods that are more like berries. You can have most all the berries you want because those are low glycemic index. They aren't going to break down to much sugar, or they break down slowly. And Granny Smith apples and grapefruit are good, but it's the other things like bananas and pineapples and I got a list: dates, watermelon, grapes, honey. You can have some honey, it's healthy, but it's also higher in sugar content. Maple syrup, higher in sugar content. So when you really want your body to be optimally healthy, you keep that a little lower.
Okay, so
Sweetened with stevia, things like that.
you don't want to be drowning those whole grain pancakes in your maple syrup. Even though it's natural, you want to be minimal. We have so many more tips to share with you, and that's coming up right after this. Have your questions for Dr. Pat answered on an episode of Maximize Living. Email Dr. Pat at cw57.tv. And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. So we're climbing Maximize Living's food pyramid right now. We've gotten up to nuts and seeds. What can you tell us about that?
Eat them. They're really good for you. Different types of nuts have a high protein in them. They get good quality fats in them. And seeds are wonderful. You can soak them too and sprout nuts and seeds and beans. Some of you may not want to take the time to do that, but you can get more nutrition out of it. In fact, people who eat a lot of nuts, of course, should always be eaten raw, you know, and not cooked in a high temperature oil, and it's not healthy that way. So I wouldn't get the high temperature ones like that, or the I would eat the nuts that have soaked whenever you can, and then you can dry them. You can dry them in an oven or in a dehydrator, and they get better nutritional value from it. Some people get upset stomach if they eat too many nuts, and because there's a phytic acid in there, and that sometimes upsets the digestive system. But if you soak the nut, then it gets rid of that and opens up a little more nutrition to you. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I never would have thought of
And
that.
sprouts are always healthy for you. There's all kinds of different alfalfa, radish, sprouts that are healthy.
So if you eat sprouts, it counts as your nuts and seeds category then? Or is it
Well, you
veggie?
could put it in
lines
between, yeah.
or blurred?
It counts in your real food category.
Yes, and that's what really matters. So, artificial sweeteners, I hate to even say the word artificial to you, Dr. Pat,
No, that's fine.
are showing up on there. Are there any good ones?
Artificial sweeteners? Not really, no. You know, you got your aspartame, which, you know, came out and has been very popular, but you know, even Jay Leno says on his show, when he had the show, does Diet Coke make people fat? Because every time I see someone drinking Diet Coke, they're overweight. And so what happens is there's no calories in the soda, but the aspartame causes you to crave more calories and eat more, because that artificial sweetener causes you to crave calories.
Oh, it turns some sort of switch in your brain?
And it tends to drive more toxicity in your body. There are those that say it's tumorigenic, and really a big issue. So the aspartame would be one of them. You know, they also have the sucralose, those are artificial. So the good sweeteners really are sweeteners like stevia, or one called xylitol. Xylitol is actually extracted from plants, and it's a natural sweetener. So adding those and replacing the artificial sweeteners is a big step because it's less toxic. But I got to tell you a story. I was in Costa Rica.
Yeah?
You know, they have the incredible, most beautiful birds in Costa Rica.
Yeah,
People go there just to go bird watching. And so I'm having lunch, and there's this bird up on a perch. And bird's looking down. The couple next to us gets up, and the bird swoops in, looks at the sugar dish, had a wide selection of aspartame, sucralose, and there was one was called natural sugar. And so what does the bird take? The bird takes the natural sugar.
Wow.
Takes in his talons, flies back up to his perch, then the couple sits down, didn't even know a bird had gotten to their table.
Hopefully it didn't sit on their plates.
No. And then began to open and ate the real sugar.
It did open it?
Yeah, opened it and it was eating the real sugar. Probably had a lot of practice. Sits there all day, I bet.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story for me is even a bird brain knows to eat the real sugar rather than the artificial sugar.
That's a good one. That's a good slogan. We could use that definitely again. So what about spices? Do they really count for anything, or are they just kind of like an extra?
You know, they're really helpful. You know, spices like turmeric has shown anti-tumor qualities to it. And countries that eat a lot of turmeric have less problems. So it's anti-inflammatory. Turmeric is awesome. Ginger, garlic, onions. Those spices are really good, and it's kind of hard to overdo it on them. Cinnamon is a great spice for health, too.
That's great news, too, because I feel like every recipe I cook calls for tons of onion and garlic. Maybe it's just me.
Fresh chopped ginger in there, oh, it's incredible.
Oh, yeah, that would be amazing, too. And it's a good way to add flavor to your foods without using all that fat.
Yeah, and that's good food tastes good. I'd start with better quality, spice and cook it just right, and you don't want to go back. I can't eat some of these foods that are artificial. They taste like plastic.
So just really quickly, what are some things that people can do to make a change if they're so used to doing things one way? We talked about how addictive like sugar can be, for instance.
Well, just realize that real food is fun. Cook with somebody, make it a fun event. You know, start today and start small. Add one new food, learn a new recipe a week. And really, how many recipes do you need? By the time you got 10 or 15 of them, you probably you're craving one of those good meals again if you keep rotating through. So just make it fun, start small, and make it a hobby to eat well.
I like those tips too, because it's not like it has to be this huge overhaul change of your life. You can just start small today by finding a new recipe.
And when you eat real and get real with food, you just don't want to go back.
Exactly. Well, stay with us. We have more right after this.
Have your questions for Dr. Pat answered on an episode of Maximize Living. Email Dr. Pat at cw57.tv.
Thanks for watching our show, Getting Real with Food. Remember, though, that maximized quality nutrition is only one of the 5 essentials for a healthy life. Great health starts first and foremost with a sound and healthy spine, free from nerve interference. Nerve signals from your brain not only control your digestion, but all functions of your body. Life's forces, falls, and strains shift our spines and interfere with nerve function. That's why the most important thing you can do is get a spinal checkup from a doctor of chiropractic. I'd love to do that for you. Call 608-833-1282 today. For Maximize Living, I'm Dr. Patrick Andersen. Live well.
Have your questions for Dr. Pat answered on an episode of Maximize Living. Email Dr. Pat at cw57.tv.